The Mosin-Nagant. This one's for you vodka-chugging, history-hungry comrades. Let's settle down for the epic tale of the Mosin-Nagant, the bolt-action behemoth that's been slinging lead since the Tsars still wore the fancy hats. This Russian rifle didn't just fight wars, it practically arm wrestled history into submission, outlasting empires and enemies with the stubbornness of a mule on a Siberian tundra. From a duo of brainy designers to the rifle that made snipers and peasants equally deadly, the Mosin-Nagant is a legend wrapped in wood and steel. So grab you some vodka and warm up a bit. Let's settle down for the history of a rifle that's got more staying power than your grandpa's war stories. My name's Dwayne. This is Hunt, Shoot, Live. Thanks for joining me for some gun history. So the Mosin-Nagant story begins in the 1880s when the Russian Empire, still wielding the outdated Berdan rifles, needed a modern bolt action to keep up with European powers. So the Russian army launched a competition to replace its single-shot relics. Enter Sergei Mosin. He was a Russian captain and engineer, and Leon Nagant, a Belgian designer with a knack for firearms. Mosin's 1890 prototype, a bolt-action rifle chambered for the 7.62x54 cartridge, featured a 5-round internal magazine and a simple, robust design. Nagant contributed a magazine feed system, though his role was smaller than the name actually suggests. After trials against other designs, the Russian army merged Mosin's rifle with Nagant's magazine, adopting the 3-line rifle model 1891, named for 3-line caliber, an old Russian measurement. Production began in 1891 at a couple of arsenals with some foreign help from France. Mosin-Nagant was rugged and accurate out to 500 meters or so, cheap to produce, and it was ideal for Russia's vast conscript-heavy army. Early models included a long barrel and a fixed bayonet, perfect for the era's inline infantry tactics. The Mosin-Nagant saw its first major action in the Russo-Japanese War, 1904-1905, where it performed well despite Russia's defeat. Its durability did shine in those harsh conditions, though the long model 1891 was pretty unwieldy in close combat. By World War I, millions of Mosin-Nagants armed Russian troops in the trenches. The rifle's 7.62x54 round could punch through cover, and its bolt action allowed rapid fire, though Russian logistics and training did often lag behind. The 1917 Russian Revolution turned the Mosin-Nagant into a mainstay. Both red and white armies used it during the Russian Civil War, 1917-1923, with captured rifles often changing hands. The new Soviet regime kept the Mosin-Nagant as its primary rifle, producing updated variants like the shorter model 1891-10. Its simplicity suited mass production and minimally trained soldiers, ensuring its place in the Red Army's arsenal. The Mosin-Nagant peaked during World War II, arming millions of Soviet soldiers against Nazi Germany. The modernized model 1891-30, introduced in 1930, became the standard. It had a shorter barrel, improved sights, better ergonomics. The model 1938 carbine and the model 1944 carbine, which had a folding bayonet, offered compact options for cavalry and support troops. The rifle's ruggedness was unmatched, functioning dang well in those Russian winters and muddy battlefields alike. Soviet snipers used scoped Mosin-Nagants to devastating effect, with some racking up hundreds of kills reportedly. Over 17 million Mosin-Nagants were produced by 1945, mostly by just a couple of manufacturers, including Tula and wartime factories in the Urals. The rifle also armed Chinese, Polish, and partisan forces, spreading its reach across the Eastern Front. Its reliability and power made it a symbol of Soviet resistance, even if its bolt action was outpaced by some semi-autos like the M1 Garand. So post-World War II, the Mosin-Nagant was overshadowed by semi-automatic and automatic rifles like the SKS and the AK-47. It remained in Soviet service for snipers and reserve units into the 1950s, with some use in the Korean War in 1950 through 1953. That was by Chinese and North Korean troops both. The rifle saw action in proxy wars from Vietnam to Angola, often as surplus supplied to communist allies. Variants like the Chinese Type 53 carbine kept the design pretty well alive in Asia. By the 1960s, the Mosin-Nagant was largely relegated to ceremonial roles and training and militias in the Soviet bloc. Its long barrel and manual action couldn't really compete with those modern assault rifles, but its durability kept it in those arsenals. Surplus rifles were exported en masse, with millions stored in Soviet warehouses, ready for a war that just never came. Starting in the 1990s, surplus Mosin-Nagants flooded civilian markets, especially in the US, Canada, and Europe, priced as low as $50 to $100. Can't find them like that now. They became a budget favorite for shooters and hunters and collectors. That 7.62 by 54 cartridge, still widely available, was effective for deer, bear, and long-range plinking. The rifle's historic appeal, with many bearing battle scars or Soviet markings, made it collector's gems, with rare variants like the Finnish M39s fetching some premium price. The Mosin-Nagant found a niche in historical reenactments and shooting competitions, though its heavy weight, about 9 pounds, and stiff bolt limit its appeal for modern hunting. Aftermarket accessories like synthetic stocks and scope mounts have emerged, but most owners kept the classic wood look. By the 2010s, prices had risen quite a bit as surpluses dried up, but that just reflected the growing demand for this pretty awesome piece of history. As of now, the Mosin-Nagant is a civilian icon, no longer in military use, but cherished certainly for its ruggedness and for its legacy. Refurbished rifles, often from Ukraine or Russia's pre-2022 exports, remain available through dealers like Classic Firearms. The rifle's fan base thrives on forums where enthusiasts trade tips on restoring those old guns. It's a staple at some gun ranges, valued for that cheap ammo and satisfying kick. And it's also appeared in a lot of video games and films as a Soviet symbol. With over 37 million produced, the Mosin-Nagant's influence certainly endures. Its design inspired later rifles, and its simplicity remains a benchmark for reliability. From those Tsarist soldiers to modern collectors, the Mosin-Nagant is a testament to function over flash. A rifle that's seen it all and still shoots straight, sometimes. So there you go. The Mosin-Nagant's century-spanning odyssey from Tsarist trials to your gun safe. This rifle didn't just survive wars and revolutions, it laughed in the face of progress and kept on firing while fancier guns just froze. Whether you're sniping targets or just showing this beauty off at the range, it certainly delivers, most of the time. So oil that bolt, blow the dust off of those 7.62 by 54 rounds, and don't just sit here looking at me. My name is Dwayne from Hunt Shoot Live. Thanks for joining me for some gun history.